So today is May 2nd, 2020, and I will be giving you a short lecture on the economics of home ownership in comparison with renting your home. And so let's let me get to the PowerPoint. So as you grow up and graduate from college, you're going to face this decision of whether to own or rent your initially apartment and later on house. Can you hear me, Sophie? Are you there, Sophie?
Yeah, I'm just on mute in case Mom decides to unleash her terror.
Okay. Can you make sure that I'm recording this? Can you tell?
Yeah,
okay.
It says recording.
Okay, great. So let me, so we're going to use some sort of another real example to highlight the differences between owning your home and renting your home from somebody else. Okay, now.
Oh yeah, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, so in most, part of human history, at least after, recorded history of civilized living, a man, they always say a man's house is his own castle. And it's also sort of an indispensable component of the so-called American dream, home ownership. And a stable home provides, a shelter, literally, from the elements of nature for the entire family. The comfort, security, and stability for the family, and the freedom and independence from a legal perspective, and from practical points of view, from potentially hostile forces, such as criminals and the government sometimes, to the extent provided by law. Okay, so, but of course, we're talking about economics, right? So for anything valuable, there's always a price tag, right? So in a market economy, unless like in Soviet Union, they used to provide housing to you, there's always a price for almost every good or service of value, including a home, right? So in the United States, right now, the median sales price of a single family home is about $250,000. What does median mean? Median means like half the house are more expensive than this price, and half of the houses are cheaper than $250,000. And it also varies a lot across the country. In West Virginia, the median sales price of single-family home is about $100,000, but in Hawaii, it's 6 times of that. And the median nationwide monthly rent for a one-bedroom apartment is $950, and for two-bedroom apartment, it's about $1,200. So of course there are regional differences as well, but those are kind of rough numbers in terms of the outright purchase price of single-family home and rentals you need to pay for apartments. Just rough idea, but keep those numbers in your mind, Sophie. All right. Okay. Now. So now today I'm going to try to explain to you, primarily the difference between owning or renting, to buy or to rent. That's what I mean. Not to own. I mean, when you buy it, you own it. So there are many factors you need to take into account when you make this decision, right? First, where you are in your life. If you're a college student, a young couple, a family with kids for schooling, or a retiree who does not want the hassle of home ownership, the maintenance, property tax, and the risks associated with home ownership, right? You need to take that into account. and also where you are in your finance, in your personal finance. Do you have the down payment for the home, right? To buy the house, right? And banks usually require you to make a down payment for your mortgage, for your home, because, for example, if a house is, in our example, $250,000, right? And you, if you borrow the entire amount of $250,000 from the bank, then if the price goes down, then the bank may not get its principal amount back if it's a non-recourse mortgage, meaning after the bank takes over the house and sells it, and the bank could not go after you for the balance of the loan, then that's why the bank always wants you to have some sort of skin in the game by putting down your own down payment. In our example, for a house of $250,000, the bank usually requires you traditionally to put on 20% your own money, which is $50,000. Did I get it right? Yes. So that at least if the price goes down from $250,000 to $220, right? $220,000, you would not abandon the house, because then you, and even if you do, the bank would be made whole after it sells the house. You will get $220,000, enough to cover the amount it has lent to you. Do you follow me, Sophie? Hello? You are a bad student. Okay.
Listen, do not call me a bad student. I endure your rambles. I listen. I am thoughtful. Okay.
Okay. I'm just teasing you.
I don't want to awaken the beast.
So the down payment is essentially a cushion for the bank. It's for the bank's benefit. All right. But financially, you need to have that much before you can contemplate, buying a house. At least, as far as the if the banks and everybody follow the tradition, right? Which is, the tradition is based upon sort of some economic principles and risk allocation principles, right? So let's see. Using a concrete example now, right? If you want to buy a house of $250,000, if you put down 20% of down payment at 6% annual interest rate for 30-year mortgage, right? Your total interest payment for the next 30 years will be actually pretty close to the price you pay for the house itself. Those interest payments are kind of in addition to, the purchase price you pay, right? So in this scenario, your monthly mortgage payment will be just $1, about $1 short of $1,200. So it's almost the same as renting a two-bedroom apartment, remember? But here's the breakdown of monthly payment. That's why I told you in last class that initially, you can tell if you look at this screen, right? Most of your payment goes to is essentially interest payment, and leaving just a little bit for your principal repayment, right? But as your principal gets reduced as time goes by, more and more, of your monthly 1,200 payment goes toward reduction of your principal, and it goes, this trend will continue until the day you pay off your entire mortgage in 30 years. So here's the concrete number breakdown of your essentially $1,200 monthly payment. You can tell, Sophie, for the first month, your interest is $1,000. So that makes sense, right? $200,000, roughly speaking, your 6% monthly annual interest rate, that's 0.5% monthly interest rate, right? So 0.5% multiplied by $200,000 loan, that's $1,000 of your principal, right? I mean your interest payment. So your principal will go down by only about $200. You see that for the first month, okay? And then for the after about a year, after half a year for the first 12 months, right? your principal amount goes up by like about $6. So for every check of $1,200 you write to the bank, only after half a year it has, in the principal repayment has gone up from $200 to $206, and your interest payment will come down from $1,000 per check to about $992 per check. Okay, so that's consistent with the graphic illustration that you just saw in the last slide. And then after 30 years, right, your mortgage, you can tell toward the end of your 30-year mortgage period, right, you can tell like most of the payment, like more than $1,158 and of your monthly mortgage check go to reduce your principal, and then $41, $35, $29, and $6, go to pay for the ever decreasing amount of principal, interest due to the bank. So after 30 long years, right, in April of 2050, you're gonna pay off your mortgage and it will have zero balance. Okay. So you learn how to do this kind of thing only after you go to business school, usually, or maybe undergraduate. But if you tweak the number a little bit, you see, if you just change one variable, if the interest rate goes down from 6% to 3%, right, your monthly payment goes down from $1,200 to $843 per month. And you see, right from the very beginning, more and more of your monthly payment of $843 goes to reduce your principal. And so that, more and more, of that in the next and the next installment, mortgage monthly payment will go to reduce your principal amount. And of course, your total interest cost over the course of 30 years will be much less, will be only $103,000. So you can tell, so whenever the country has any kind of economic crisis or issues, the government will reduce interest rate so that the cost of borrowing, cost of our business to borrow money, and cost of our individual household to borrow for example, to purchase a house will come down. So people will feel like they can afford more housing. They could, businesses could invest more in equipment and things like that to expand. All right, so next slide. So if you look at this whole thing, you would wonder, why do people rent then? If they could they could pay roughly the same amount of their rental expense to get a mortgage and own their own home and build equity in their house. Equity meaning, so whenever you pay down the principal of the loan you own to the bank, right? That you build equity in the house, meaning if you sell a house, right, you have less money you need to pay to the bank because your principal has been reduced. You have more money left for yourself. It's just like any company, if the enterprise value of the company is the amount of debt it owns and the amount of equity left over for the shareholders. So it's the same kind of logic. So you would wonder, why do people still rent? Well, there are a few, preconditions that I just mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. First, you need a down payment, right? And second, you probably need to be somehow stable in your personal life. You probably you have a stable job, you have, a stable family that you do not contemplate moving around. For example, if you go to college, unless you want to, unless you have the money to pay for the down payment, and unless you want to stay around where you go to college, you probably do not want to buy a house and pay being sort of stuck in a 30-year mortgage. Also, people buy and sell their houses much more often than that. few people in the United States actually live in the house, for most of their life. But again, there are going to be transactional costs. What if the housing price goes down while when you graduate from college and you move away from your college town? So, as advantage of the home ownership is, as I explained to you, you build up equity, right? So you do not pay monthly rent to a landlord who used your money to build up equity in the apartment he rents to you, right? So essentially, a lot of landlords are doing that. They use tenants' money to pay down their mortgage, and then slowly they own the entire apartment debt free, using essentially the tenants' money. So that's why real estate investment, including rental property, it could be a very good business if you know how to manage it. Um, so you can tell the homeowner under a lot of circumstances, especially if the interest rate is low and housing price is not very high, they only pay slightly more than the renter, which I explained to you in the very beginning, right? So, and also a homeowner's monthly mortgage payment is usually fixed upfront. Rent could be subject to inflation and should be. Oh, Sophie, do you have any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Hello, where are you, Sophie? Sophie. Anyway, I'll go on. So why do people rent? Again, that's the flip side of this same topic. If you own the house, you have the risk of foreclosure. If you run into any kind of short-term or long-term financial trouble, you would not be able to pay your mortgage, and the bank will take over your house and sell it in the hope of recover the loan it has made to you. And also, again, associated with that, related to that is a price risk of price decline. And if your own if your house is worth less than what you own to the bank, you are caught under the water, and you might well just abandon the house. And if the bank has no legal right to go after you for the shortage, for the gap between the amount you own to the bank and the amount the bank could sell your house for. So but generally speaking, if the economy is relatively stable and a person has reached a certain stage in his personal life and financial life, he's better off to pay the down payment and rent and own a house instead of renting and paying um, um, the mortgage essentially for the landlord. Which I just explained, right? Why don't everybody just go out and buy and rent it out and make tenant pay for their mortgage? You need resources for the down payment. You have a risk of foreclosure and price declines, right? And you need to carry out the practical responsibility in terms of maintenance of the house, and then also there's property tax, right? So if you can handle these three things, I call 3R: resources, risks, and responsibilities, right? Then giving the price earning ratio of apartment in the United States, it's a decent business. It's not a fantastic business to buy apartments and rent them out. To use your tenants' monthly rent to pay down your mortgage and build your equity in apartments, and even in apartment buildings. So you can notice I go back to the same concept of price earning ratio. It's just like when you own a company, right? However much you pay for it has to be justified, and by however much dividend, um, um, however much earning that company could make. It's the same thing with any investment. It applies to buying and owning rental properties like apartment buildings or single family houses. Um, you need to look at how much rental income it could generate for you. And then from there, you figure out how much you should pay for the apartment or for the apartment building or the single family house. I'm sure you are not listening now, but I'm gonna have a test for you later on, just to see whether you actually pay attention in this class. All right, I think that's the end of today's class. I'm trying to be as efficient as I can. But do not really pay attention when you have a very long presentation. Sophia, are you still there?